You boys be quiet down there!
And now, a platformer about a planet where everyone wears bug suits. We're looking at each and every Neo Geo game in order of catalog number, and this time we're looking at NGH-022, Blues Journey, aka Raguy, from Alpha Denshi, later known as ADK. The game's copyright date on the title screen and MVS label is 1990, but it appears that it wasn't actually released until March of 1991. We'll be looking at Blues Journey on my MVS cartridge here. Blues Journey is our third actually released game from ADK that we've looked at in the series. And for this one, ADK started their own numbering system, in addition to SNK's NGH numbers. Blues Journey is ALM-001. Why did they wait until this one to start numbering their games? Well, ADK's first two, Magician Lord and Ninja Combat, were both launch games, and were actually published by SNK when ADK was considered a first-party developer, but Blues Journey is the first that was published by Alpha Denshi. Also, the Neo Geo Cd version is ADCD-001. Based on the spelling, you might be tempted to pronounce the Japanese title Raguy. I mean, after all, there later on was a Ray Man, why not also a Ray Guy? The Japanese spelling on the MVS cartridge label makes it clear that the pronunciation is Raguy. Raguy is actually the name of the planet this game takes place on, not our hero. In both the Japanese and English versions, our hero is creatively named Blue. Welcome to the planet Raguy, a colorful place of beauty, conflict, and no grammar or spell check. Raguy has been invaded by the Daruma tribe, which gets its name from the Japanese Daruma doll, and is polluting the planet. How original. Also, Blue has to rescue Princess Fa of the Raguy family. Super original. Blue happens to be a specialist in an attack called the Leaf Dump. Yes, the Leaf Dump is not the most intimidating sounding form of attack, which perhaps doesn't say much for the enemies in this game. The Japanese text says that he's number one at the Leaf Art, or Leaf Technique, which comes off a bit better than Leaf Dump. Fortunately, Blue's attack can be upgraded to either a bomb or a boomerang-style blade. In addition to the regular attacks, Blue is able to jump on enemies, which sends them spinning, dangerously. This usually isn't your best option, since spinning enemies often get stuck somewhere on the screen blocking your path, and Blue can actually take damage from spinning enemies. The main planner of Blues Journey was Takashi Hatono, who has several well-known ADK games to his credit. The lead designer was Yoko Igarashi, who worked on almost no other games. Eiji Fukatsu, the designer of the Neo Geo, is credited here, but it's unclear if he had any involvement in the game. He seems to be just credited for designing the Neo Geo hardware itself. There's quite a bit of overlap between the programming staff for Blues Journey and Magician Lord, as well as other Neo Geo games from ADK. The game was released nearly a year after Magician Lord, so it seems to have been one of the next projects worked on after that game. As we've seen in this series though, ADK worked on several games for the early Neo Geo. Press A to attack, B to jump, and C allows you to shrink to a smaller size. Pressing C again will return Blue to his normal size. While you are small, you are unable to attack, and you can move faster. You can also fit into spaces where you wouldn't be able to go while full size. Here we begin to see some of the interesting ideas going on in Blues Journey, but at the same time, the concept of being able to change your size seems a bit half-baked. Yes, you can use the small size to fit into some otherwise unreachable areas at certain key points in the game, and I'm sure speedrunners will make good use of it, but beyond that, it's hard to see what the ability to change size really adds to Blues Journey. With mastery of the game, there are certainly opportunities to benefit from changing to the small size, but for most players it's probably easy to forget about the C button during the majority of the game while battling enemies and traversing the stages. It's an interesting element for sure, but it's hard to see what it really adds to the game. As in most Neo Geo games, there is a two-player mode here, but rather than giving Blue a true sidekick, just like in Bonk 3, Player 2 simply plays as a green copy of the main character, which the manual refers to as Shadow Blue. It says Blue's able to use magic to produce a duplicate of himself. okay, nice explanation manual, they might as well have just named the two-player character Green. Shadow Blue is already lazy enough. Should you take on Planet Raguy with a buddy, the rules are changed in some familiar ways. In one-player mode, each time you die or continue, the screen goes black, and your character gets reset. Although much like in the arcade version of Magician Lord, you respawn right where you left off, or at least on the last piece of solid ground you touched. The only time this makes a huge difference to the game is during the bosses, where you must start the boss battle over each time you die. However, in two-player mode, you simply respawn immediately upon dying, your character flying in on this time-limited balloon. So this changes the flow of the game and makes it a slightly faster experience for two players. Blue's Journey may look like a simple wacky game, but looks can be deceiving. It can be a grueling experience if you attempt to play the two-player mode casually, say with a buddy who's never played it, or an inexperienced gamer. The game punishes a two-player team that doesn't know the game well and has trouble sticking together, with its enemies and traps that quickly enter the screen, as well as cheap bottomless pits and spikes. Expect a casual playthrough where both players don't know the game to be a credit-feeding, continue frenzy. In one-player mode, the game takes on a much more studied, Magician Lord-like challenge, despite the very different looks and playstyles of the two games. The ideal two-player experience would be a team where both players have played the one-player game extensively and have rehearsed playing together. Good luck putting that crack team together. Oh, and by the way, ADK has mercifully given you unlimited continues in Blue's Journey, even while playing in AES mode, and you're going to need them. All that said, the game is still challenging, with somewhat slippery feeling controls, and hit detection that's a bit on the sloppy side. The home version offers no difficulty select, but if you own the game on MVS or have a Unibios installed, you can select the difficulty level in the soft dip settings, although regardless of the level you choose, the game is hard. The graphics in Blue's Journey are colorful and detailed. There's a lot of variety to the backgrounds, and enemies have plenty of personality. Even though many of the basic enemies are just simple animals, they are drawn and animated in a way that bring life to them. The game looked very good at the time when it was released, and showcased what the Neo Geo could do. Here's a nice detail where two of the enemies are visiting with each other before Blue shows up and interrupts them. It's touches like this that really bring personality to a game, and make me feel bad about Blue killing these things. The short first stage of the game is the Jungle Zone, and serves as a fairly easy introduction. The Japanese version mentions that the Jungle Zone is called Jamo. Most of the game's stages or zones consist of 4 parts, or acts if you will, with the last part ending in a boss battle, but the Jungle Zone only has 2 acts.
Welcome!
Good grief. I've noticed that everyone on the planet Raguy seems to have a high-pitched voice.
These are our real voices.
Here you can buy a honey pot to refill your life, a swim fin to help you swim faster in water areas, shoes that protect you from spikes, a spring that will increase your walking speed, or a safe that lets you keep items when you die. The shopkeeper can also play a song that will cure you if you're cursed by the wizard Nero. If you finish the game while you're still cursed, you will get an ending where Blue is frozen, which actually isn't easy to do because the curse goes away anytime Blue dies, so you have to get cursed earlier in the stage and then survive to the ending. But if you don't have enough money... Wow. Problematic? You just sold me something else, and now suddenly you're not giving me the time of day? And for those players who are into kinky pixie stuff, the shopkeeper will refuse your inappropriate advances. For whatever reason, the graphics in the boss room remind me of Wonder Boy in Monsterland. In fact, the game's stages and character design do have somewhat of a Monster World quality to them, although that comparison is a bit too flattering for Blue's Journey. Even the stage clear music reminds me a bit of the stage clear jingle from Monster Lair. At the end of each stage, the characters you rescued from the boss will offer you the chance to partake in a lottery drawing. You can choose okay, I'll bet, or pass. What is it with people saying okay instead of okay on the Neo Geo? At least in Puzzled, they were talking about a key at the time, so the slip makes more sense. You just rescued these people and they are charging you money to gamble on a game? You'd think the least they could do is give you the prizes for free as a thank you. What is going on with this planet? This is the only place in the game where you can win a life ball, which adds an additional heart to your life meter. This upgrade is a massive help and lasts for the rest of the game, even if you continue, so you don't want to skip playing the lottery drawing for a chance to win it. Want to make sure you get that life meter boost? You will always win the life ball if you buy the ocarina in the shop. It is toy. From here, the game branches into two paths. You can choose the Lower Earth Empire, not to be confused with Middle Earth, or Empire Marsh. This game doesn't take place on Earth at all. It's on the planet Raguy, so why is it called Lower Earth? Again, it's the fault of the English translation. In the Japanese, the zone is the underground kingdom of Kuira, and the Empire Marsh is the Marsh Empire of Shabarn. You will not play through every stage of Blue's journey in a given playthrough. Basically, you always have to start at the jungle zone. You are given your choice of 2 of 4 stages, and then you will always play the final zone, the Daruma Empire. You will play through 4 zones in a single game, but the game actually has a total of 6 zones, shortening the length of one game and ensuring that not every playthrough is the same. Lower Earth is basically your volcano/lava zone. In Area 1, you'll find this guy who wants you to look his magic. If you tell him you enjoyed it, he'll give you some honey that will refill your energy. In Area 2 of Lower Earth, you can find a travel agent service that will allow you to skip ahead to the last area of Lower Earth. Go back to the Empire Marsh instead, or skip ahead to the Mechanical City Zone. You can use this to jump ahead or to make the game longer by going back and playing Empire Marsh instead. The only thing that would make it better is if you could control this thing and wipe out some trees along the way for some bonuses. This game could use a bonus stage anyway, might as well steal from the best. In Area 3, you'll meet Blue's rival, Rhett. Not Red, that's Rhett with a T. Rhett is what Japanese manuals and the English AES manual says, although they corrected it to Red for the English Neo Geo CD manual, probably because Rhett does look like it may have been a typo. He is just a red copy of Blue. I wonder how many different colored copies of Blue there are in this universe. These things are popping up everywhere, they're like Yoshis. Anyway, he challenges you to a one-hit duel, and if you beat him, got then, I'll start all over. Bull, you take this. Disgraced in defeat, he resorts to insulting Blue by pretending to get his name wrong, and in a rare slight from the game itself, the game agrees with him and also calls you Bull. What an asshole. He just called you Blue before the fight, and then 3 seconds later, he pretends to forget? The boss of Lower Earth gives you a chance to yield. If you choose to go home, you will then see a bad ending. The game has more than one bad ending, but luckily none of them actually end the game. The false epilogue is always followed by the text, "Do you believe it?" before going back to the game. It's nice that it isn't just game over like in certain other games. Though it is fun to find the alternate endings in other games, whereas these just seem to function as a quick joke. As previously mentioned, after completing your second zone, you will again get a choice between 2 stages. You can choose the Mechanical City. In Japanese, it's further mentioned that the Mechanical City is called Bakin. Your other choice is the Starge Space. What the hell is a Starge? Well, if we look at the Japanese text again, it becomes clear that they meant strange space. Wow, so they swapped the A and the R, and they left out the N altogether. Welcome to Starge Space! And this same typo is not only displayed here on the map screen, but before all 4 acts of the stage. Talk about proofreading. Someone must have mistyped it, and if anyone else ever looked at it, they obviously never questioned it. Actually, looking at this game, it's quite clear there was nobody proofreading. Starge Space! So anyway, Starge Space is basically your usual snow and ice stage, with some Legos, candy, and ice cream thrown in for good measure. On the 3rd act of Starge Space, you'll meet a guy who lost his hatchet. Well, that was easy, it's right fricking there. He will cut down this big icy tree behind his house, and there you can find an invisible golden cocoon, which will grant you a 1-up. The boss of Starge Space is this cute snowman with skis. The Daruma castle in the background is a nice touch. If you're playing in one-player mode here, you're going to have to take your time, be careful, and memorize the boss's pattern. Your biggest enemy in this fight is the flaky hit detection. The difference between landing a hit on an enemy attacking from above and getting hurt is very unforgiving. Unless you've already learned the game, this is the part where you'll probably get stuck for the longest in one-player mode. Of course, in two-player mode, if you're not good, you can just get hit all you want and blow through it. I don't know if I can go on with it. Give a hand to Raguy's people. Bad guy. You know what? Now that I know you were going to say that, I'm glad I quit. Good luck saving Raguy yourself. You're on your own. I was beginning to wonder if your classist, leaf-dropping, opportunistic, helium-voiced planet is even worth saving. Instead of storage space, you have the option to play through the mechanical city, Bakin. It's your typical mechanical style level with plenty of annoying traps, including these hamburger mashers. Uh-huh. Go on. Yeah, but... Okay, we can't waste time by playing games. Yes, waste of time. The final zone, the Daruma Empire, is another mechanical stage. Here's a fun secret in Act 1, where you can meet Neo Geo's mascot, G-Mantle, and grab some bonuses. Right at the beginning, you have another chance to see a bad ending. I don't know, he looks pretty happy to me. This mini-boss's attack pattern with the garlic is super annoying, but the best strategy is to just keep hitting him as fast as you can once you manage to land a hit. In fact, the same strategy works on a lot of the enemies in the game. Before fighting the final boss, Emperor Daruma, you have to beat this robot bug thing, and the same strategy applies. It's his mission to kill you, Blue. When he's defeated, he makes a point of telling you he's not hurt, immediately before he explodes. The "I'm not hurt" line is actually a mistranslation, where he was originally telling Blue that he doesn't know how to defeat Emperor Daruma. When you fight Emperor Daruma, he gives you the opportunity to see that same bad ending again, just in case you wanted to watch it one more time. He will ask, "Are you resistance me?" For a final boss, he's kind of a pushover. All you have to do is hit his yo-yo spinning thing, and then you can throw it back at him. He doesn't take too many hits. Blue's journey has at least 6 different actual endings. In one version, Blue simply marries Princess Fa, but if you've encountered Rhett in the game, he will interrupt and confess his love for the princess. He then challenges you to another one-hit fight, and if you win, Fa will marry Blue, but if you lose, she will marry Rhett. If you fight him to a draw, she can't choose. What the hell is her problem? And in case you still like Princess Fa's character, there's also an ending where she won't marry you because you don't have enough money. For whatever reason, one of the misconceptions about Blue's journey that still seems to persist is that the game is somehow like a Super Mario game, as if Blue's journey is the Neo Geo's answer to Mario. As for the game's similarities to Mario, it's hard to see many of them. Yes, like Super Mario Bros., Blue's journey is a colorful platformer, but so was everything back then. And you are able to change size, which is something that, admittedly, Mario does. And you are able to jump on enemies in Blue's journey, although it's not the character's main form of attack. The feature perhaps most aped from Mario comes at the end of each level, when you must try to jump on the beanstalk at the highest point you can. The concept is basically a direct copy of the flagpole from Super Mario Bros. I just wish you could get a bonus for jumping on the flagpole while carrying an enemy. Mario definitely would have given you points for that. So yes, Blue's Journey is a platformer with a few passing resemblances to Mario, but outside of that, there isn't a whole lot in common. Perhaps this idea originally came from the need back in the early 90s for every console to have a mascot. Nintendo had Mario, Sega had Sonic, even the TurboGrafx had Bonk, and the CDI had Hulk Hogan? There's a natural human tendency to organize our world into convenient similar categories. Other consoles have a mascot, so the Neo Geo must have one too.
Damn you, fit!
If the Neo Geo has an unofficial mascot, then at least from today's perspective, it's probably Terry Bogard. As mentioned earlier, the Neo Geo's mascot was G-Mantle, but he was more of a marketing tool, making cameo appearances in the background of many Neo Geo titles, but never starring in his own game. In the absence of any clear Neo Geo mascot, perhaps people naturally gravitated to any platformer that fit the bill, and Blues Journey just happened to be there at the right time. He is the main character of an early 80K game, but definitely not the Neo Geo's mascot, and the game certainly is no Mario clone. The music in Blues Journey is pretty good. The soundtrack tends to get interrupted a lot more in one-player mode from dying and respawning. Events such as entering shops also interrupt the music. You may be tempted to write this one off as a cutesy game with a cutesy soundtrack upon hearing the first stage's Caribbean-inspired theme. And indeed, the overall tone is cute, but the soundtrack does get better after the first stage. Once again, the team at 80K proved that they had what it takes to make the Neo Geo sing with their own sound driver for the console. Blues Journey happens to use version 3.5 of 80K's Z80 sound driver, newer than those of both Magician Lord and Ninja Combat. In the early days of the system, 80K beat out SNK in terms of the quality of their soundtracks, but this will quickly change as we move forward chronologically in the Neo Geo's game library. One song in the game is particularly Magician Lord-esque at points. Magician Lord and Blues Journey are certainly very different games with different soundtracks, yet there are some similarities. Anything in common between the music of Magician Lord and Blues Journey can likely be attributed to 80K composer Yuka Watanabe, who composed music for both games. In fact, Watanabe is Blues Journey's one and only music credit, whereas Magician Lord had 3 composers, so the successes or failings of the music here can be completely attributed to Watanabe. You're probably familiar with Watanabe's other work in the World Heroes and Cross Sword series, as well as Twinkle Star Sprites and many other Neo Geo games from 80K. One other noticeable detail that the Magician Lord and Blues Journey soundtracks have in common are percussion samples, particularly this kick-ass cymbal crash featured in both games. If you put the game in Japanese mode, some voices are different in ways you might not expect.
Welcome! Irashai! Come on, baby!
The English stage clear voice does actually appear in both the Japanese and English modes, but in the music. The Neo Geo CD version of Blues Journey is very much like the cartridge version. The entire game loads up in 52 seconds, and will never need to load again throughout the game. One improvement is that the difficulty select missing in the AES version is here in the CD version. Due to the game's age, it's no surprise that the CD version doesn't have any arranged soundtrack. Just like in Magician Lord, whoever recorded the game's music to CD audio really sucked at their job and screwed it up badly. As in Magician Lord, the CD tracks aren't recorded in stereo. Instead, the right and left channels have been mixed down to a mono recording from the cartridge. I've said it before, but how hard is it to record Neo Geo music onto CD audio tracks? You had one job. If you're familiar with the cartridge version, the music sounds very wrong here on the CD, with a weird, echoey quality. Other than the music, the only real issue with the Neo Geo CD version is the very brief wait time when you die in one-player mode. As usual, the CD access time causes a slight wait when respawning or loading the continue screen, as the laser lens seeks the music tracks on the disc. Perhaps this won't be a huge issue if you're good at the game or play with 2 players. So stick with the cartridge version if you can, but the Neo Geo Cd version of Blues Journey is otherwise just okay. Blues Journey is alright. The gameplay is not as refined as Magician Lord. The game has beautiful colorful graphics and some nice character designs. The odd bug theming of the human-like characters may not be to everyone's taste. The game has a lot going for it. There are so many ingredients in the recipe here, but somehow all the disparate pieces just don't quite come together and add up to a well-rounded, consistent whole. You have to admire the sheer volume of different ideas here, some new, some lifted from other games. The team at ADK seems to have thrown everything at the wall to see what would stick, but something just feels a bit off. For players new to this game, Blues Journey has enough humor and originality to at least be good for one playthrough as a novel, quick distraction. Beyond that though, players approaching this game today may take some time to warm up to all the elements here. No doubt for veteran Neo Geo players though, with all the interesting things to do and decent level of challenge, Blues Journey is a classic, despite its flaws. Thank you for watching Neo Alex Neo Geo reviews. Next time on the series, we'll be looking at NGH-023, Quiz Daisosa-sen. This is a Japanese quiz game with no English language option. We will go through the game's plot and look at several translations of real questions from the game. Don't pass up this opportunity to gain some appreciation for a Neo Geo game that you may not have played before. I hope this upcoming video will provide English-speaking Neo Geo fans with a lot of insight into this relatively unfamiliar game. That's why you're going to want to subscribe to Basement Brothers and click the notification bell so you don't miss it. I'll see you next time.